Love is in the air and is the perfect excuse to show some love to the least loved class in all of D&D. Cueing the Ranger. Hello everyone, welcome to Fried Dice Recipes, where just like fried rice, I take something from D&D, make some stuff up about it, slap it together, and hopefully it comes out nice. And hopefully your players enjoy that quick thing that we served up.
Nice.
Before we get started on making the thing, let's do a little bit of research on Valentine's Day. While not entirely agreed upon, the most popular legend is that of a Christian martyr named Saint Valentine, who lived in the Roman Empire around the 3rd century. The emperor at the time really didn't want single men getting married because he believed that single men made better soldiers. Our homeboy Valentine, though, defied this decree and continued to wed young couples in secret. He was eventually discovered, however, and was arrested on February 14th, henceforth Valentine's Day, and allegedly he had wrote "From your Valentine" to the jailer's daughter, hence starting that tradition of writing "Your Valentine" on love letters. Another theory is that Valentine's Day is linked to another festival called Lupercalia. Lupercalia had a festival with fertility rites where they would link men and women through a lottery system, and it's not unlikely that this was adapted into the Christian tradition. Over time, we have associated this more with love and romance, exchanging gifts and love letters all over the world. One of the most prominent figures that is often displayed on Valentine's Day is Cupid, the Roman god of love, who happens to also be the son of the goddess of love, Aphrodite. Cupid is often portrayed as a childlike male, flying around with wings and shooting people with his bow and arrow. Legend has it, if you are struck by the arrow, you would immediately fall in love with the next person that you encounter. He was also not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed and was always a hopeless romantic. One of his most popular stories was of him falling in love with a woman named Psyche. Because Psyche was extremely beautiful, his mother Aphrodite, as with most Aphrodite tales, got extremely jealous. So Aphrodite set Cupid out to shoot Psyche so that she would fall in love with a monster. However, plot twist, Cupid ends up pricking himself and he ends up falling in love with Psyche. After going through several trials set by Aphrodite, they head up to Zeus and instead ask him for consent to get married, of which he obliges. Oddly, a surprisingly happy tale for a Greek fable. Cupid, oddly enough, is also the inspiration for how cherubs appear in modern media. Traditionally, cherubs are supposed to look like this and not like this, and I know it's not really related to Valentine's Day, but we'll keep track of that for our homebrew.
Write that down, write that down!
I think this is a good place for us to start, so let's start talking about existing mechanics. As I mentioned just now, when I think of bows and arrows, I immediately think of the Ranger. Sure, the Rangers are more than just a bow and arrow, and often some of their features border on some sort of racism or speciesism level of... Let me just type that in. Noted. Okay, back to flavoring them with love instead of hate. Let's build a Valentine's themed Ranger. I'm not gonna go through every single feature that the Ranger has, especially since many of the features have basically the same name. I'm looking at you, favored enemy and favored foe, natural explorer and deft explorer, and primeval awareness and primal awareness. Yeah, we're just gonna look at the base subclasses and maybe touch some of those other books. Hunters get Hunter's Prey, where they get to pick from one of 3 options. Colossus Slayer, where they get to deal extra damage to creatures that are already hurt. Giant Killer, which lets you hit bigger creatures when they attack. And Horde Breaker, which lets you slice through many creatures at once. At level 7, you get yet another 3 options with defensive tactics. Escape from the Horde, which makes opportunity attacks less reliable when they're attacking you. Multi-attack defense, which increases your armor class whenever you get hit by the same creature, hence defending you against multi-attacks. and Steel, which makes you more courageous and makes it harder for you to get scared. And at level 11, you get multi-attack, which again gives you another 2 options, of which you can pick 1. This is also not to be confused with extra attack. Firstly, you get volley, which lets you make a ranged attack against a group of creatures in an area. And second, you get whirlwind attack, which literally lets you do the Zelda spin against everyone in your immediate vicinity. Lastly, at level 15, you get the Hunter's Capstone ability, which is the Superior Hunter's Defense. It basically gives you another 3 options, of which you can pick 1, and 2 of these options are basically rogue abilities. Rogue ability number 1 is Evasion, where basically if you have to make a dexterity saving throw, if you succeed, you instead take 0 instead of half damage, and if you fail, you take half instead of full damage. And then the other option is also a rogue feature called Uncanny Dodge, where if you see an attack, you can use your reaction to half the damage. And a third choice, which is not related to the rogue, called Against the Tide, where basically if a creature attacks you and misses, you can instead redirect that attack to hit something else. Let's move on to Beastmasters. Beastmasters, on the other hand, at level 3, get a Primal Companion or a Ranger's Companion, which has a ton of rules that I'm not going to go through, but basically says you now have a pet. At level 7, you get Exceptional Training, where basically you get more options to command your pet, and all of their attacks count as magical for the sake of being magical damage. Ooh, shiny Magikarp. Next, you get Bestial Fury at level 11, which basically gives your pet an extra attack or a multi-attack. And at level 15, for the Capstone of the Beastmaster, you get Shared Spells, where basically if there's a spell that's buffing you, you can also buff your pet. We'll also take a look at the Drake Warden and Swarmkeeper subclasses for some extra rules, but the overall vibe is more or less kind of the same as the Beastmaster. Except with a Drake Warden, you get a dragon that will eventually learn to fly, and with the Swarmkeeper, you have bugs or insects or other swarm-like creatures that can technically already fly, and even at one point, they let you fly. Let's jump the gun here and just immediately assume that our Cherub is going to have wings. Overall, looking at all the various subclasses, for the Ranger, there aren't really many similarities between the level 3 and level 5 features, which seem to focus on defining the subclass, but there seems to be some similarities at the level 11 feature, where they tend to have some sort of buff to action economy, granting more attacks, and at level 15, where there's more of some kind of passive buff going on. It wasn't mentioned before, however, but some of the other subclasses, like the previously mentioned Swarmkeeper, Horizon Walker, and Gloomstalker, tend to give the subclass some extra spells to further define it. All this happens at level 3, so let's give our Valentine's class some spells as well. Overall, while not all Ranger subclasses have pets, to me it's one of the most rangery things, so conveniently too, there are 4 subclasses and there are 4 words for Greek love, so we'll be using that as our basis of inspiration for these 4 subclass features. Let's get started on making some homebrew. Starting at level 3, let's start giving the Ranger an unnecessary number of features, and of course, let's start with spells. Most obviously, let's start with Ceremony, so that we can start wedding people right from the get-go. And at higher levels, we'll start giving them other buffing spells such as Aid and Aura of Life, and at the final level when they can cast level 5 spells, let's give them the ability to cast Telepathic Bond. Just throw it in there, let's give them Charm Person as well, so that for those people who don't want to get married, we can force them to fall in love instead. What's Valentine's without gifts? So let's create a Valentine's Gifts feature. Just like the Hunter, for the Valentine's Gifts feature, let's give the player some options of which they can pick one. And of course, at higher levels, they can pick another until all 4 are picked at level 17. These are going to range from like chocolates and flowers and other stereotypical Valentine's gifts. Lastly, since Rangers with pets are the coolest kinds of Rangers, let's start with the first form of love, which is Philia. And this will be the feature that allows the Ranger to summon a Cherub companion. We're not going to think too hard about this feature and just take everything from Drake Warden and then Control F and replace Drake with Cherub. Of course, I'm gonna come up with a custom Cherub stat block. At level 7, we'll upgrade our Cherub with Storge? Storage?
Storge.
Whatever. Let's give the Cherub the ability to actually shoot allies to buff them and shoot enemies to debuff them. At level 11, let's get passionate with arrows. Let's give your Cherub a mass heal ability like some other Celestials have, and since it's about the same effect as a mass healing word, if you expend a level 3 spell slot, the Cherub will be able to use this feature again. Lastly, for agape or godly love, let's turn your Cherub into a real Cherub with 4 heads and an even more massive and powerful stat block. With all the mechanics out of the way, let's come up with some lore ideas. Valentina was always a joy to be around. As an orphan, she was raised in a foster home amongst her foster siblings, where she learned to embrace all of their differences. She had loved everyone she had ever met and was not afraid to show it. One day, said love manifested into a tiny little flying creature, a cherub. Eventually, she would grow up and pick up the bow herself, learning from her little cherub creature. As a young adult, she meets a party of adventurers and discovers a new form of love, a love for adventuring. She and her cherub companion filled the perfect role of a scout, looking far ahead, and once they were ready, they would support their party if any dangers were to occur. Her cherub companion also fulfills the perfect role of mascot, especially for those parties of a more persuasive disposition. Just like the ranger, a jack of all trades class, Valentina can heal a bit, but she's not exactly a healer. She can fight pretty well, but she might not be the best fighter. She may also not be very charismatic, but she's not the worst at talking. Because of her ability to understand other people, let's give her a higher wisdom and some points in charisma to show that she can communicate her love, and of course, some dexterity to show some of her bow shooting skills and playfulness. What secrets could her mysterious cherub have? The party could be looking for where this cherub is from. What if secretly it's hiding from some sort of ex-angel like a Lucifer or a Zariel type figure? Do you have any other fallen angels in your world that is hunting for this cherub? What if the cherub was only here because he had pricked himself too, just like Cupid and Psyche, but instead this cherub and Valentina? What if Valentina is actually destined to become a goddess too? I feel like this gives the Dungeon Master an opportunity to use more Celestials and Fiends in their game, kind of like some sort of Good Omens scenario. What if this cherub was never meant to end up in Valentina's arms? What if the Fiend and or Angel tasked with collecting this cherub lost it and slipped a little, and now they don't know whether to commit to finding this cherub and taking them back or not? Maybe said Fiend and Angel don't really want to kill Valentina just to get this cherub back. It's less work. Short term, you could tie in various religious groups or cultists, which are technically just more of the same thing, and other potential religious groups that want to take this power. Well, that's how you create a Cherub Ranger subclass. We figured out and researched on what exists, then we looked at existing mechanics as well, and then we fit them in with the research creating where we needed to. The last step to any homebrew is to playtest them, so obviously, you need to go through all 4 of these steps on your own and start making and typing stuff out and drawing art if you really want to. I'm just a talking head on the internet. Lol, JK. All the links are in the description down below. I have already typed it all out in a Google Doc for you. The fun thing about Homebrew is that it's not that different from official content. Over the years, as people play them more, we figure out what we like and what we don't like and iterate as we need to. I mean, look at the Rangers' optional features. Some of their subclasses have optional features. And if you like it, leave a comment down below, and if you have any ideas for potential gifts, feel free to tell me more about them, and hopefully in the future we can make more homebrew together. Thanks for watching. This is the first relatively long form video that I'm making on YouTube about homebrew, and I'm hoping to make more because we've done quite a few things online on Twitch, and I feel like this is a way where I can just talk about the process and my thoughts on making stuff. Words leave my mouth. If you're enjoying this, I'd really appreciate a deep fried like and subscribe. And hey, see you in the next video. Don't forget, who's awesome? You're awesome.